Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton Agenda AWANI. Dan malam ini saya ingin kembali untuk membicarakan tentang satu segmen atau strata industri yang kerap dibincangkan di Astro AWANI, iaitu tentang industri kecil dan sederhana. Begitu besar sekali jumlah IKS di Malaysia, number of SMEs in Malaysia, 97%, ada kata 98%, ada kata 99% dan sebagainya. But yang paling penting sekali, begitu sedikit bilangan daripada keseluruhan itu yang menggunakan R&D untuk memajukan perniagaan mereka. Dalam konteks itu, kita ingin melihat pada apa yang dilakukan di luar negara. I would like to now talk in English because I would like to welcome Dr. Lawrence Kaiser. He's from the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft Institute, if I get that right. So because Fraunhofer has got tons of institute, I think 60 over, and they have a lot of specialization. But today we're going to talk about one, especially looking at how do you make SME adopt R&D more. Because if this country, Malaysia, is to go up the value chain in the global economy, R&D must be the thrust for our SME to do that. And of course, we have Dr. Ahmad Ibrahim, the senior advisor for Fraunhofer Malaysia, and Fraunhofer has already have partnerships with the government and also institutions in Malaysia. But I will let you start the ball rolling by, if I look at the slides that Fraunhofer has online, you know, if we look at the Max Planck Institute, and that's a very well-known institute. Mm-hmm. However, their rate of partnership and commercialization is low compared to the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft Institute in getting funding from industry and directly bringing it to commercialization. So, what has been the differentiation factor for Fraunhofer and the SMEs?
Yes, first of all, Fraunhofer's mission is applied research, and you mentioned Max Planck Gesellschaft, which is primarily dedicated for basic research. And Fraunhofer, also by his historical background from the 50s and 60s, has the mission to help and empower small and medium-sized companies with technological solutions, with helping new products, but not only small and medium-sized. But if you look to our statistics, 80% of our clients are from small and medium-sized. Okay. Not the turnover with 80%, but the sum of the clients is that. And we have very close relationships to those companies who require some technical solutions over the state of the art, which help them with new products. Many of them do not undertake own research facilities or own patent offices or own IP resources, and therefore they contact our specialized institutes for very, very different solutions they need. And source these services or developments out and get it back for...
So Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, for example, doesn't have to go to the SMEs. SMEs will come to Fraunhofer Gesellschaft.
It depends. You know, in the branches, the specialists know each other. And we have not something like a public relation work. But although in conferences or in, let's say, symposia or wherever the scientists are together at the university, we offer and discuss our technical competences.
The perception is that if you do R&D, first it's costly, second it's difficult and complex. So for certain SME, that's very frightening because, you know, they are comfortable with what they have. So it opens up the issue of risk and areas that I don't know well. In Germany, over the years, how have you seen the openness of SME? What has been the main driving factor for them to adopt technology and R&D?
Yeah, as you know, the products markets all over the world are very challenging, and the newest developments are required, and the competition is very strong. And mostly the companies have some very special requirements and demands, and they look for solutions. Not it's mostly not the development of a whole product. It's a solution in a part of a product where, for example, an excellent software is needed, or an excellent material is needed, or whatever is. So it's mostly the task is often defined by the SME, by the company, and the solution comes from the Fraunhofer Institute.
Dr. Ahmad, how can we map that into our local ecosystem? Because that is a big problem for us right now.
You know, Malaysia has struggled in a number of aspects with regard to R&D. One is to bring R&D to market. There's been a big struggle in Malaysia. And the other one is to get our small, medium enterprise to actually be investing in R&D or partnering with R&D centers. So the Fraunhofer model is actually where they have this tripartite relationship between the university, Fraunhofer, and the government and industry. So in this way, it has created a very good platform for technology commercialization, and this is where Malaysia is looking at it as one of the possible proven model. But of course, in order to implement it, you will have to face a number of challenges, and this time Fraunhofer, Dr. Kaiser is here to actually sign an agreement with SIRIM. SIRIM will be given the task to start this Fraunhofer model in Malaysia.
Meaning what the 67 Fraunhofer Institute in Germany are doing will have to be done, but SIRIM is going to be at the forefront. So I'll go into the mechanics of how, but once we are back, we go to the first break, but once we are back, I want to talk about, sometimes we got to see examples, and optimum coding in the frequency domain, for example, is what Fraunhofer has given us in terms of product that you can actually carry with you everywhere. That we'll discuss after the short break. Fraunhofer collaboration with AT&T, Bell Labs and Thomson, especially for an OCF algorithm or optimum coding in the frequency domain, has seen you and me be more friendly to music and other stuff that is based on MP3 format, because that's what they help solve the problem, and they came up with how to reduce the size of audio files without compromising on the quality, and then hence voila, MP3. So that's the kind of thing that we want our SME to have. Big breakthroughs that changes people's life doesn't have to come from only big Fortune 500 companies. SME can drive them because SME has numbers and they are faced with problems every day. What we're saying is, do not make the problems a stumbling block. Come and partner together with initiative like this. So SIRIM is going to lead this initiative. But if I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm with an SME right now, I'll be asking you, so what's the cost? What's the catch? There must be cash somewhere. You want me to go to you, somebody's got to pay the bills and all that. So if you can explain to us how sustainable the financing part of these agreements or partnership.
It depends on the real situation. In the end, the company, the SME, is the one who is bringing the product to the market and has the product idea, and is seeking for a solution for modern things. We have different forms of financing projects. So most of the research work done in Fraunhofer is on projects, and these projects can be purchased from a company. It can be funded by public means in a project funding, or it can performed by our own institutional funding.
Okay.
So Fraunhofer in the end has a triple finance sources, a basic funding for its own work to come in a interesting background for industry. The project fundings are such projects also under participation of companies where the government is financing additionally project targeted things. And the most important thing for Fraunhofer is the industrial turnover, which is now, last year has been 600 million of euro.
That's a huge amount.
In the whole, the budget of Fraunhofer is 2.3 billion a year, about now.
Okay.
But this financial mix is a very, very basic for Fraunhofer success, because this guarantees the basic funding, guarantees the scientific expertise, the scientific quality. And the funding from the projects from industry show the application of that.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, the MP3, which is a real success, this was basic work in the institute in cooperation with the university in the starting phase, in starting 80s. And in the end, it was the exploitation, the commercialization with an electronic company.
Dr. Ahmad, we know that the bulk of our R&D for Malaysia resides in our higher institution of learning, whether they are research universities or not. So how would the Fraunhofer model create a more vibrant ecosystem? Because we know we have R&D. It's just that there's a gap between those R&D done to the market or industry needs. So this might be a good way to unleash that potential. However, there's also the issue of a lot of research and development done right now might not be direct fit to the industry. So how do you calibrate this?
So that's why I like what Dr. Kaiser has mentioned. The idea for the research comes from the companies because they are actually very close to the market.
They know what the market wants.
So, but in Malaysia, we still have a difficulty in that culture of SMEs investing in R&D. So in the initial phase, although SIRIM takes the lead, but the initial funding, a lot will have to come from government sources.
Okay.
But once this culture of R&D becomes more entrenched within the SMEs, then over the years, they will start looking at investment in R&D as a business.
Yeah. For example, if a local company who deals with audio technology works together with Fraunhofer, and then maybe for sake of discussion, MP7, and that revolutionized, the way we hear audio and music.
Right.
So then that will spark other things to happen. I have to go for the next break, but once we are back, I want also to look at, because in Germany, there's also the cluster system that's built around centers or institutes that Fraunhofer has. So are we looking at that in Malaysia? Because rather than just leave it to the players and the R&D centers already here, there might be expertise from Fraunhofer, 67 Institute, that we can bring here and then build a cluster around them somewhere in this country, for example. Let's talk about that after this last break. How do you make our SME world-class? One of it, for sure, is by incorporating science, technology, and innovation. Without R&D, we can't have that because we'll be doing the same old way into the 21st century. And a lot of our SMEs might have even been using the same technology for decades. But to move forward, the government is initiating this first. They're going to invest funding. They brought in reputable, you mentioned billions, and I'm like, wow, even if we can do that in Malaysian ringgit, that's a whole lot of money. And you mentioned in euros.
Yes.
So rather than just look at the ecosystem, see what's there in terms of the landscape for the industry and R&D, maybe we can bring expertise from Fraunhofer and then build clusters around it.
Why not? We must all be aware that scientific work nowadays is not a question of 2 partners or 3 partners. There are many players around, and you know that our products in IT technology or in automotive or whatsoever are very, very complex, and you need to have more players than 2. And therefore, cooperation schemes of different ways are needed to come to a success in the end, and to have the right IP or the right knowledge in the right situation. Therefore, the clustering of competencies is basic, and it is additionally the case that research becomes more and more international. You can see it on different effects and statistics that's really given, and therefore the inclusion of the right partners in the sense of clustering is basic. Experts among themselves know that, and include them in an appropriate way. Also, the financing plays a key role, and not any project is for industrial applications, and not any project is possible for funding or whatsoever. It has to be created in a sense, and that's in my job in some perspective also, to have the right cooperation form, the right IP transfer, and the right situation. And I could imagine that Serim and Fraunhofer looks back to a traditional long cooperation, that they can help themselves to agglomerate their knowledge and their expertise.
Dr. Ahmad, the reason I asked about the cluster perspective is because our economic policy is based also on regional developments. Eastern Corridor, Northern Corridor, Sarawak and stuff. So, and I know one of the clusters that Fraunhofer already have is bioenergy. So if you go to SCORE, that is in Sarawak, for example, now the use of renewable energy, then we don't need to start totally new from scratch. So we just add or make more effective and higher up the value chain initiative that we already have. Because, like it or not, we are still a developing nation, and our resources are limited in that sense.
Yeah, I think the clustering approach is definitely one very good model, because nowadays, if you talk about solutions, about innovation, is a networking. The networking is very important. As I explained, there are many parties involved. How to bring these parties together that you can have this more synergistic success. You know? We have cases where we bring multinational with the local SMEs, with the universities, with the research. So together, they can actually look at all these potential technology areas better.
What will be among the first few things to be rolled out from the partnership with Serim? For Fraunhofer, among the first few things that we in Malaysia can see from collaboration between Serim and Fraunhofer?
Yes. Last week, I think there was signed a contract about a very challenging and a project about bonding of metal.
Metal injection molding, they call it.
Yes. To have a concrete example for that, really actual. And there are other things in the pipeline, as I learned from you, for really defined project. Additionally to that, we could establish some basic relationship to have, let's say, institutional cooperation contract that makes it easier for our institutes and your institutes to cooperate. And please, you may not forget that we have to include for the scientific quality the universities also, which is also a basic of Fraunhofer, and that should be taken into account also.
So would you see setting the targets of increasing quantitatively and qualitatively the applied research in Malaysia in the near future?
I could imagine that it will help and increase, but I also must make you aware that it takes time. This is not from today to tomorrow activity. You must find the trust of industry, of the companies, to the research facilities, to the industry, and also to the international dimension. Because if a Malaysian company is cooperating with a Malaysian institute, it's clear, but in the background is a German institute. The IP question has to be posed and to be solved, and all those things. And please don't forget another effect which I would expect also here, is the spinning off of companies from the research activities. That is a very important way of transfer among the four that are
and the companies doesn't necessarily must be with the people who started the R&D.
Yes.
It can be a totally another layer.
Yes. You know, the non-for-profit organizations like Fraunhofer, like CIRIM, are not allowed to go into a production process. But in the product development, often it's necessary to have a period of, or let's say, experimental phase. And for that, often there are established spin-offs with the direct expertise from the scientific side.
So there will be new opportunities for new entrepreneurs also to emerge, not just the current one.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for making time. I'm sure we'll see you a lot more in Malaysia. You can come here again always. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad, as always. Thanks to you, hantarkan pandangan anda sendiri juga kepada pelbagai platform yang Astro AWANI ada, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter dan sebagainya, ataupun terus muat turun aplikasi Mudah Alih iOS dan Android supaya anda boleh menonton agenda AWANI secara langsung di gadget Mudah Alih anda. Sekian, selamat malam dan terima kasih. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.